Good day, it's Arno Klaasen again here from LifeWise, and I'm continuing in the series of my gospel story. Today we are at chapter 8 or session 8, and I will call it the congregation. It sounds very strange, but you will see how we will get there. Remember, as we've said the previous time, the previous session was about 15 years, about 36 to 50 in my life, where I got involved in a career situation. In terms of that, in a career in terms of property investment and learning more about the financial world and getting a career line or a career track also in my life so that I could have two tracks for my train to run on, and not only one track, only the ministry track, but also a career track. And I was so astonished to see how answers came to me through this activation in my life and the studying of all these things. And in all these things, I got involved with the concepts of wealth and wealth creation and financial freedom. And this stuff, intrigued me, not in the sense that there was finances number one in the first place involved in it, because it is something that is of a spiritual world. It's a spiritual concept, It is something where freedom is involved. And all these things, because this is what the Bible is all about. It's about people living provided freely, in abundance, more than enough, sharing with other people. And it more and more triggered me, to get to know more of this, because it looks so much more of a Christian life, than the life I've been used to, and the normal life of the Christians I've seen that is so much in need, that they can't do anything, and they don't have margins to live in, they don't have money to activate anything in their lives, they're just struggling and surviving and trying to get to the end of the month. And I started to see something in it that's much more of a kingdom and a godly dimension than the other one. So I was not fully into the whole thing, but I tried to study myself into all this stuff, and somewhere along the road, I got to know things like also a generational wealth. It just triggered me, this generational wealth, how wealth is building up through generations, when the next generation start, where the other ones stopped, and how they built upon each other, and what is the possibilities in that, and especially also in the fact that these generations are actually people of the same family that's working together, that's flowing to each other, And it reminded me of the thing of God. It's the God of Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac. It's like generations. Because I was convinced that God was really a generational God. And yes, the first place in my, let's say, whole theological world that I saw, but there is something of generations here. Yeah, we say God is the God of this, but we never come to the conclusion of what does it mean, or what is the implications for us and all these things. So here I'm with this generational wealth thing, building family legacy, family legacy. I mean, that's a terminology they're using, And I realize, we've got a personal creative purpose. You've got the creation purpose in marriage and as a family. And I just realized, man, family legacy is nothing else than a creative purpose. I found more of the biblical stuff in the financial books than I could find it in theological books, So, it was such a disillusionment for me to find out, maybe I've been looking all the years in the wrong places for answers. Because there's so much stuff here that's talking about the real thing, and I could never find anything of that in the theological world, or at least not in the church world. I mean, we don't talk about these things. We never look at these things like that. And it is very important to understand that wealth is something else than riches. Riches is a big cash flow every month, but wealth is something where money works for you. You don't need longer work for money work for you. And you get to a place where you get to passive incomes and all these things that's making life a total different scenario. But the interesting thing is that riches comes through businesses. Because a business gives you great cash flow, and you can buy a lot of riches with it. It's not a right and a wrong, it's just what it is. But wealth is something that that runs in people. It's wisdom. It runs in families. That's why we call it wealth creation families. The people talk about the Rockefeller family, the Rupert family. Wealth runs in families. Yes, riches runs, you get it sort of, not everywhere, but riches is not necessarily connected to a family. Because you see people having a lot and then losing a lot, but it's not the same situation with wealth. Okay, so this concept was keeping me a lot busy thinking about it, and how do you fit this into my present world, and how do you marry this spiritual things and the spiritual life, and this let's say money world and everything that's happening here, because it's two tracks of the same train, and the train is my life. And remember what we've said, God has given us two systems. He's given us a business system where we need to make profits, we need to make money. Then He's given us this family system in which we need to package people with relationships. Therefore, we need to conquer money and relationships. But these two are the two tracks that run together. And it started to fascinate me that there is maybe a totally another world, and maybe in this new stuff we can accommodate everything, we can reconcile everything with each other. Because this was one of my problems in my life. I was running in different directions with different things, but I could put it on one table, but it was not synchronizing each other. It was sort of 5 different things, But suddenly I realized, but I could get a plan where these 5 things could come together, and it becomes one plan, integrated with each other, running together to something bigger goal that I never thought of. I never actually knew anything about. So that was the stimulation in my life going into the years over 50. And then I still didn't have my congregation or my church answer, if you can say it like that. And you've heard the story up till there. And I was battling, I was really looking for the answer, because I believe in this thing, It is not that I'm negative about it, I believe in it, but I just can't see how this thing is fitting into the whole equation of everything that I'm busy with. So at that stage, it was around about 2015, and I decided to go drastic and said to myself, listen, maybe it's time to take a whole year off and just sit and sort this thing out and get this thing, as we sometimes say, get this thing into the bed and get it over and get it over and done and dusted. And so I decided to devote my whole year 2015 to this problem. But I'm not a person that's sitting down and just, reading Bible, if you can say it like that, or just studying or thinking. So I bought a house, and I was busy renovating the house, but the workers was actually doing the job, so I was just overseeing it. And for me, it gives me time, on the outside it kept me busy, but in the inside I'm here busy with the Lord, and thinking about this whole thing. Because I've seen previously, if I could give a year and put it out, most people never do it in their lives, but I could do it because I've been put into a situation where I can do it. That was not the first time in my life that I was doing it. But then I started to focus on it, and the interesting thing is that the Lord started to work with me and talk to me about this whole subject. But again, totally on a different way, totally. Not from a spiritual way, but more from a just practical, logistical way. And the first thing the Lord actually taught me was, it's the problem originates with time. Yeah, I thought, man, this is very earthly, time. But the more I thought about it, I realized, that time is a very important thing, because time never becomes more. And I always see, in planting churches, the biggest problem with planting churches is that you grow yourself into death. Because the biggest enemy of church is growth. We all want the growth, but you grow yourself dead. Because we start our programs, and there's just not at the end of the day any more time left. So we steal time from the relational side of our lives to run all these programs, and at the end of the day, the relational side just sort of disappear basically, and there's only this programs and activity that is left. So I started to realize, it was not for me a big revelation, but I realized, okay, maybe this is much more important than I'm thinking. Which is maybe playing much more a role than I thought of. But studying it, putting it there, then the next thing the Lord told me about this whole thing of the two systems that I've already mentioned so many times, and actually what I saw eventually at the end of the day is that I thought to myself, where is a church fitting into this business and family system? Well, when you ask the people, they say it fits here with the family. But when you see the way it's been building, it's built like a business. Now, how do you know if something is a business? You just take the money away for 2 or 3 months, and then you'll see if it's still there. Because a business cannot survive without money, but a family can survive without money. A family is a dynamic place of people where they just think out things and they create things, and they're not, in a sense, dependent. They will not die because of a lack of money, but the business will die because of a lack of money. So when I realized, that the thing that we call church is actually believers that's coming together, and the moment they get to 100 and 200 people, we move them into a business system. But the problem is this business system cannot really handle the thing. We started, it's a main man, and there's departments, and there's this programs, and there's this constitution, and all these things, and then this thing is taking all our energy. It takes all our energy and our money and focus, and we need, because we're building this thing. And what actually happened along the way, I believe, is that when I talk about church, I talk about the institutionalized system. I'm not talking about the people. The people is the body of Christ. For me, it's the congregation. And remember, there's two words. The word church is never mentioned in the Bible. There's a Greek word for that, but it is never in the Bible. The word congregation is in the Bible, and there's a definite reason for that, and I'll come to that. But for me, church is this outward structure, this outward business structure, that is in essence not wrong, but we make use of it to structure people, because we don't know how to build a relational structure with more than 100 or 200 people. Then we go over, especially in the Western world, we're used to business structures. Because we don't know how to build a structure that can even maybe accommodate 1 million people in a relational structure. We're supposed to build a relational structure, but we don't know how to build that relational structure. So then we built a church, and then we get into troubles, because this church needs a special leader, it needs a special building, a special program, a special money, so that we can run it. And it's not that it is wrong to have leaders, or maybe even a building, or make use of a building, or may have a program, or there's nothing wrong and evil in it. It is just that we've built it in such a way that it is a centralized business system. And a centralized business system is working to the inward part, and it is taking control over everything and every person. And it is not like a family system. A family system is when a child is born, everything is focused upon the child, to raise the child and to let him rise above all of us, and to let the next generation can be better and excel better than us. We pump everything into the next generation, and we go into the world. The problem in our church system, one of our problems, is we've got two messages. We tell people come, and then we tell them go. They haven't yet really went, somewhere. Then we tell them come back, come back, go, come back, come, go. And guess what they do? They just settle for come, because the come is an easy part. Because everything is settled and done for you and prepared for you. You just come, and the most worst part you need to do is to put down some money. And I'm not making jokes. This is really the situation. And we bring people into this thing, and we make them volunteers. Well, God says no. In God's kingdom, there's no volunteer. You make a decision for God. You're in the kingdom. You've got a command to go and make disciples. It's not like, do you want to be part of this? Do you want to begin? Volunteering is out. It is not a kingdom concept. It's not a congregation concept. It's not a body of Christ concept. God has only got believers that is being commanded to go and make disciples. It's not an option. It is a command. It is what the kingdom is all about. It is bringing the kingdom of God into this world. that we will get into later. But we see this this thing, and I remember, I always say to my wife, how do we build this thing? But the answer is right in front of us. We can even name it. We can even see it. We even talk about it, but we don't know we're talking about it as that is the answer. And so around about July that year, that I've totally put away for looking for the answer. There was a little bit in the holiday, a bit of relaxation, and I thought to maybe investigate this financial liberty of generational wealth thing, So I went on the internet and I found a book there of James Hughes. It's called Family Wealth. James Hughes, Family Wealth. A beautiful book. He's written actually a few books. But this book is all about this thing, about this wealth creation families. Remember, we said wealth is running in families. But the only big problem that these people have in wealth creation families is that it is the following. They've got even a motto or a word for it. They say from shirt sleeve to shirt sleeve in 3 generations. Meaning that the grandfather starts, with very difficult times on the farm, get things together, his life change, you could grow out of some things, and then his children go to university and they outgrow something, and then you get the grandchildren. And one day when the assets or the wealth of the grandfather gets to the grandchildren, it disappears. Because it only lasts for 3 generations. Then the 4th generation is back to the farm scenario, starting all over again with nothing. And it is a big problem, and people do not know what is really the problem around it. And that fascinated me to hear about this and to think about it. What is the problem concerning this? How do you solve this thing? And this guy and his wife was a 4th generation in a wealth creation family where both their father and mothers have lost it. And they had to start all over again. And he was an attorney, and he was structuring for wealth creators. So he was exposed to these people, and it made it his life to study these people and found out what is the answer. What is the reason to this whole thing? And this was really fascinating. It is a really fascinating book. And I read through the whole book, and it came to a place, for me myself, I said, well, coming from a spiritual background, I said, I think the problem is, and it's basically one of the reasons, that they say that the value reproduction from one generation to another generation, if it's good, it is 50%. Then from the next generation to the next generation, it gets 50%. So if you have good value reproduction, you have a situation where the chances are good that your grandchildren will have 25% of your values. So we need to do extra things to reproduce values than just living. We need to have separate and focused times where we sit down, teach, train, whatever the situation may be, to invest and to establish values in the next generation. It's not like just live it. It will be have an effect, but not good enough. So when you find that the wealth of the grandfather ends up with the grandchildren, and they only have 25% values, it will not last. And that's what's happening. It falls through. Because values is all about how do you live? How do you see life? What is your life vision? What is your lifestyle? What is success for you? And where do all these things fit into? How do you build life? And lots of things. Values is all about life. And you cannot maintain a certain amount of things in a lifestyle that cannot contain that amount of stuff in a lifestyle that can only sustain that amount of maybe assets, because your whole thinking and attitude and lifestyle is not good enough to handle it. So that was my explanation to it. That is actually, I believe, a good explanation. But this guy in his book, James Hughes, he said the following. He said he could find only one difference between wealth creation families that only lasted for 3 generations and wealth creation families that last for 100 and 200 years. And this is very, very important. And that is the way how they do family. Hear me again. The only difference between this is the way how they do family. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. When I read those words, it struck me like a hammer. Like dish. Now, because I realized, man, my first book I ever finished was family life. I mean, I was preaching family all over. I was convinced about this subject, and I knew the subject, but I never knew that maybe this is the answer. This is the solution to the problem. You see, the problem is that in the church world, we put emphasis and value upon the family. But it is not like them. They believe in family, they build on family, they build out of family, they build back to family, they establish everything on family, and family is the beginning and the end of everything. That's a total different vision, total different scenario, total different lifestyle. It's not just like valuing something, it's not like believing it. No, it's the everything. And I realized when I read some more books about this stuff, is that family is the biggest factor in wealth creation and wealth preservation. Family is the biggest factor in wealth creation and wealth preservation. Family is the origin of basic everything on earth. Because there is basically three places, three wombs where God produces life. It is number one, the believer with the Holy Spirit in him. Number two, the marriage of two people. And number three, the family. And that's also including the extended family. In Afrikaans we talk about die gesin en die familie, die groter familie. It's about family and extended family. It's the local house family, but also the extended family. And how all these people and generations can work together, live together in a certain sense, and help each other to get to bigger heights along the road. But then you need to understand what it is he's writing in his book further on, what is it what it means that the way how they do family and what they do in family. Let me tell you, I felt really ashamed because not even in the church world I found that. Here I had to read the books of business people in the career world talking about business stuff to get to know what God is actually meaning by family. It's a disgrace on us. We don't know it because we as church are a third system in the world. We are a third system, and we in competition with this business and family system for money, for energy, and for power, and all these things. And we suck these two systems into this one, and we build church, and we say we build these two, but we're not building it as a focus. It is just, okay, you've also got a business, but if your business fails, it's fine, we'll pray for you, it's fine. No. When you talk about this thing, when your business fails, it's enormously important. It's about family. Remember that the reason why family go to work is to generate money as a means to come back to the family so that the family can live and the family can live its creative purpose and reach out into the world. And here I see that God's purpose with congregation, that is what church is supposed to be, bringing church back to congregation, is that we need to start to come back to a place where we build family, because family is our kingdom, and we need to build this family, and out of this family we build programs and outreaches, and we finance it out of the family, we organize it out of the family, we anchor it in the family, because every time the church closed down or something, everything of the church goes in the old thing, all the programs in the society or in the community. But when something is anchored in the family, it is sustained. Yes, even families can work together and do things together in bigger and overlapping with each other. That is possible, and that is even good. But the point is that God's focus is that we need to disciple the world, and that is where David Watson is coming in. Beautiful stuff. Our action in going out is, whatever the program may be, it is all about discipleship and reaching the world and bringing them into the bigger family, and that is God's family, and to help them to create this thing. But it is out of the family. I was my whole life long busy building the church. The church was never really interested in my house and my family and my ministry and nothing. Because they don't even know what it is all about. I don't know what is your ministry all about. I don't know, because only the Lord can tell you. But But you see, it is my responsibility to find out what is my creative purpose, my marriage creative purpose, my family's creative purpose, to bring these things together and to start to run and build. Not separating me from the rest of the world, no, from integrating with them. It's very important to understand that in our worldview with church, we've got one Pretoria with 2,000 churches and then different families. But the main thing is the church. They always say the church. But in a congregation setup, we've got one Pretoria, one congregation, and this congregation is settled and anchored in the different families. It's built out of these families. We are not in competition like churches are in competition. Churches are dividing our land and our countries. I am persuaded that churches are a bigger dividing problem in our country than the political parties. It is the biggest dividing factor that we ever had is the denominational spirit in churches. Because we build structures that's competing for money and energy and people and power and all these things. And we justify it. We say this is how it needs to be. Because church is the answer to community. No, church is not the answer to community. Jesus is the answer to community. Yeah, but we need the glass to take the water to the community, and that's the church. No, it is not the church. It's my personal life that is the glass that's got the water and the Holy Spirit in. I need my personal life to go into the world. I don't need church structures to go into the world. Yes, it doesn't mean that I do not have sort of organization and infrastructure. I do have in LifeWise. LifeWise is our class and creation purpose, if you can say it like that. And of course we've got a bit of, let's say, organization and even a bank account and different things. It's not wrong to have these things, but it is not built in such a way that I'm a competition for you. I want to give it to you. I don't want you to come and be a member with me. You're not allowed to come be a member because you are a member in your own community, in your own family. My whole purpose is to help you for you to become successful. It's not to come and sit with me and build life-wise and money-wise. No, that's our responsibility. We build this thing, we give it for free for you. You can take whatever you want, you can change, you can use it. You don't need to pay for anything. Build it, change it, develop it in your gift and your talent profile, and go bigger and go greater. I mean, the best thing that you will do is go bigger and greater than me. But listen, you will not go bigger and greater when you come and join me. You're not supposed to join me. You are already joined to the body, and you've got the command to go and do some sort of discipleship that the Lord will tell you how you and your family must do it. Because you are a different gifted person than me. I'm mainly using relationships number 1 and teaching number 2. Of course you're going to use relationships number 1 because that is the general one we all use. But then there's specific ways that you're going to do it. Maybe you're going to open up a soup kitchen. I don't know. I've got no vision for a soup kitchen. But maybe you're going to open up soup kitchens. Maybe you're going to open up some structure where you're going to help people to find work. I don't know. But just do it. But you will never do it when you join me. And you will serve me. You're not supposed to serve me. Because in congregation, you're not here to come and submit unto me. In congregation, we are all kings. You are a king, I'm a king. And we fellowship as kings and we live into each other as kings. But no one is above the other one. Only Jesus is above us. I don't need anyone above me. Jesus is enough to be above me. Yes, that doesn't say I'm not in touch with brothers and I submit willingly and I get input in my life. Of course. But I give them authority. They don't have authority over me. I give them authority. We are not in a positional structure thing where this one has got a position over here and over. No, we are in different roles. In congregation we have authority roles. In businesses we have these positions that we have over each other. I now am going on into a lot of things, and all this stuff you can read on my website, congregationwise.co.za. Congregationwise.co.za. There's 4 books there, of which one is Church or Kingdom. You will see everything there. But people, this was an enormous, what is it? Challenge that came into my life. It's like an Afrikaans ons ingrypen. It just brought me to a standstill. I had to redefine my world. I had to redefine church for myself. I had to totally redefine my strategy, my outlook, my way I look to people, how I look to finances and all these things. I had to totally redefine it. For in congregation, there is definite leaders, but we don't pay them salaries. Because you don't need to pay them salaries. It's their responsibility to be the fivefold leader if they are a fivefold leader. I mean, I'm under obligation to live it. And you don't need to pay me for that. If you want to invest in that, and if you want to flow into that, that's fine. I mean, there's money flowing in the family system, but it's not a centralized system where you're under obligation to tithe into my life. It's out of your heart. If it's not out of your heart, then you don't do it. Because there's no sense in it. And I'm not expecting it from you, and I'm not looking at you, and you are not my provision in life. I don't build the thing like that. Because every one of us must define what is the kingdom that you must do in your life, and you need to do it. Let me go on. Another thing, not only finding what is congregation, is all about family. The next thing I found is that I started reading again the books of Miles Monroe about the kingdom. I don't think there's a guy that will ever write something better about it as Miles Monroe. But I heard this stuff previously, but I could never earth it. I could never understand. Okay, as a church leader, what does it mean practically? What must I do? Must I change something? He talked about this kingdom, and it was so beautiful, but so what? I read all his books, and I could find one place in all his books where he had made the connection between church and kingdom. And actually, I don't know once Miles Monroe knew the relationship between church and kingdom, because there is not a relationship. He said the church is the hospital for people to come in to be part of the kingdom. Because the Bible never talked about church and kingdom. The Bible talks about kingdom and congregation. Then I found that, but the terminology congregation is a kingdom terminology. It is a terminology of authority. It is a terminology of everyone that accepted the Lord and has got the indwelling of the Holy Spirit, are part of God's ruling authority team, like the elders in the city, that is ruling in the city and bringing the values of the kingdom into every area, the business, the entertainment, every career, every place, every house, every situation, the sport world, wherever locality you are and you find yourself, and with whatever people you find, everywhere, 24 hours a day, you are congregation. You are a kingdom representative influencing the world with the kingdom that is inside of you, because this influence in you is the kingdom. But in church, the church concept is a spiritual concept. We only lead people to God and to basic freedom. Your money is not our problem. Actually, we will have some sort of program on the sideline about children and marriage, but that's secondary stuff. It's not the main thing. Because church is only about spiritual stuff. But in the meantime, we live most of our life we live in a real world of money and people and problems and things happening and iniquity and on all these things. But the church doesn't address it. The church cannot change it because it's a system. And we just go there, we hear maybe a beautiful sermon. We're not against sermons. We're not against maybe a gathering. It's not wrong, but we will never conquer the world like this. Let me tell you today, if you've ever wondered about it, we will never evangelize the world through the church. Never. I am 300% at least persuaded about it. Never will we evangelize the world, because this thing is an inward built thing. It consumes energy. It consumes money. It keeps you busy all the way. There's nothing left. Actually, if there's anything left to your family, you can be happy. What about going into the world? Well, God has said only one thing: go into the world and go there. And as we said, this is the only direction, because congregation is not an organization. It's got its own structure, but it is a relational structure that is built from family to family to family. We can accommodate 10, 100 million, 3 million, 100 million. We can accommodate the whole world in this structure without having any big chief along the road. Because it is a decentralized structure that is working to the outward side. It's not working to the inward side. It's about raising people and releasing people. That's what family is all about. Your children does not stay in your house for the 20 years and 40 years and 60 years. No, they need to get mature and out. But somehow in church, a few people get out. The rest just stay forever. Because the system cannot afford to get you out because of money. So we need to understand that congregation is a movement. It is a movement. And the 4 biggest things that's hindering movement is a chief. It's buildings that's very expensive. It's programs that takes very much energy. And it is money that's going to the inside and not to the outside. That is the 4 biggest enemies of movement. It's the 4 biggest pillars that we have in church. Why are we building in such an ineffective way when we're looking at the 3 biggest movements we have currently in the world, in Iran, India and in China? And all 3 of them are absolutely absent in these 4 things. Absolutely absent. It's not that there's not leaders. It's not that there's not buildings. It is not that there's not programs. But it is not built in a certain way like a business system. It's built like a family system. You see, I always say to people, it is not the components that's wrong. There's nothing evil. I never went into any church and could say, this Bible study is evil, this sermon is... No, all this stuff there. It's like building a house, all the material is there. And then someone comes and he put the material together and we say, oh, look at this beautiful house. But you could have built kennels with that. You could have built a prison with that. You could have built a tower with that. So the material is not the thing, but the way you put the material together brings a dimension of either a family or a business. And it is not the elements and the material that is wrong. It's not wrong to have leaders, buildings, because if the building is wrong, then my house is wrong. I've got a lot of coral bricks, in my houses. There's nothing wrong. How do you use it? For what do you use it? Do you promote life and do you serve people, or do you? It's all about how do you put the thing together. And we're not supposed to create a business system around people. We need to create a family system around people that gives them the freedom to move, that gives them the freedom of expression, that gives them the freedom to develop and break out and go big, and everyone can have a vision of his own. It's not like one vision from one pastor and everyone is running after this one guy. You can look at all businesses and all ministries. They are all coming out of houses. 93% of our 500 biggest businesses in this world is an outflow of a family. 40 to 45% of those businesses are still up till today owned by families, but maybe not managed by families. But family is the origin of everything that you can think of, people, because family is your kingdom. Every person and thing that you have in your life and you get in contact with is part of your kingdom. You need to build your kingdom. And we need to get to this place where we need to understand, even in South Africa, 70% to 75% of businesses in South Africa is where people work in a business where there's 2 to 10 people in that family business. It is not the mines and the factories that's giving the big work. No, it is the family businesses that's the big work givers. Everything is about family in the family world and in the business world. Because businesses is an outflow of family people. And we need to look differently at family and reevaluate again that we can not only... We see it as the foundation, but where it grows out, where we anchor it, where we flow out of it, where we reproduce family in different ways. And where we build into this family, we build the discipleship program with the missional focus, with the lordship values. That is what church is supposed to be all about. But that is not church. Church will never work. People, I've been planting churches, a lot of them. I've been visiting churches all over South Africa. You know, I can maybe name 5 churches that I can say, okay, there's something going on there. Because there's something of life there. There's something of family there. But no one of them has ever changed the country. Because you cannot change the country with a church. You need a movement. You need a movement. We need to study movement. We need to study congregation. We need to study kingdom. Because this is a new dimension that we're not actually familiar with. That we're actually not knowing so much about it than we're thinking we know about it. And let me just see. You know, the thing is that God planted a kingdom in the Garden of Eden. Adam lost his kingdom. And religion became the replacement of the kingdom. That's why people are so much in religion. I stand astonished when I sometimes look how many religion I still have in my own life. I thought, man, this is religion. Church is nothing else than a hip religion. Yes, we mean it well. Our hearts is well. And there are beautiful moments in it, of course. But when you look at the overall thing, it is a religious practice. It is not a flow of life that comes out of the believer. It comes from leaders that's talking downwards. And we always trying to survive the church, the sin problem and the problems and the problems. It is not a movement of victory, of life, of absolute dominance and bringing the kingdom. No, it is a survival thing. It's a survival hospital to get healed. Of course we need to get healed, but God healed us already 2,000 years ago. We're just fellowshipping with our hurts too much, and we don't see what we have been given in Christ already so many years ago. So Jesus brought us back a kingdom. Jesus never brought us back a church. He never commanded anywhere in the Bible to plant a church. Never. We need to stay away from it. You just need to disciple from your house into the world, and the rest will happen. We preach the word and water, but the Lord will build the kingdom. It's not my responsibility to bring Pretoria together. There will not be one apostle at the end of the day that will bring Pretoria together and we must submit under this apostle. It is nonsense. Yes, I believe in the apostolic and the fivefold ministry. Yes, just don't make a mistake. But that is not fivefold ministry. That is church. That is positions. That's not roles. That's not anointing. That's people just carving out for themselves a place so that they can have some attention and acknowledgement and salary. That's what it's all about. It's nothing else. I've been through that ropes. Surely. Let me just don't go further into it. So I want to close down with this one thing. You know, this time of my life, 51 to 55, I got this enormous revelation about generational wealth, generational families, generational freedom, and it's all about family and building family. It's not about the money, because the money is just an outflow of the whole thing. But the place that family plays into this whole thing, then I discovered this congregation thing that's actually only about family, reproducing family on a discipleship basis. Don't get me wrong on that. Because the way we live is a discipleship mode. It's according to values. It's according to implant values into people. It's a direction of moving out. Forget about coming. Forget about come here. Just cut things off. Come here. Just move. And where you are, you will find 1, 2, 3, 50, 100, 200 people. Just move. And be the influence of the kingdom wherever you move. And know that the Lord will help you. And I've got this whole revelation of the kingdom that is actually the background of everything, that brought everything for me on the table. And in the context of the kingdom, my whole life could be packaged into one main subject. I need to bring the kingdom of God on earth. And yes, my kingdom has got very different aspects in terms of my wife, my children, my money, my investments, and life-wise, and I've got but somehow it now becomes one thing, complementing each other, helping each other, flowing together. It has become the most beautiful things, because these things, especially the church thing, has It's drawn me from the house. It has kept me busy away from the house. It's kept me away from just being with these people. Just with them. You can't leave them. You can't go because these people will not like it if you go away. Because we need to gather them instead of sending them out. Let them go. And in all of this is this beautiful concept of the family. And let me tell you, this is where my third nightmare came in. And I was so stupid not to see it. But I knew the principle that if the Lord reveals something extremely precious to you, the devil will come with a fierce attack on that thing. A fierce attack. And the fierce attack came, and I don't want to be very broad about it, but it is very important to mention it here. I started looking at my own family, the extended family, the family from my, all family involved in my life. Every person and everything, and to bring together and to start to complement each other and to build this thing that I've seen in terms of congregation and kingdom and generations and generational wealth, and we started to bring this thing together, and it started to flow into each other. It becomes more beautiful and more beautiful. And then maybe I haven't mentioned it on the videos up to now, to leave it for now. In the time that I've built a trust for myself and my family, I've built one also for my mother-in-law, and then my family from that side, whatever happened, they decided to shipwreck me or whatever, I don't know what, but to get me out of this trust and to make accusation, and instead of just coming and talk with me and just going on into a relational context, they just decided, listen, we're not going to talk to you, we're going to take you to court. And they start accusing me of things that I've never even done in my life. I mean, it's totally belachelijk, I don't know what's that in English. And I pleaded with them, listen, let's talk, but I said, no, we're going the way of the court, and then afterwards we will solve the relationships. And that they were even inspired by a preacher who told them, this is the way you do it. You first fight, and then you do the relationship restoration side. That's an unbiblical statement. You'd never go to family in court. Never, never, never. I don't mind whatever they've done to you. You can tell me they've stolen everything for you. You never go to family with court, because it's an unbiblical principle. You will lose all the relationships. All the relationships. And the relationships in a family has got a creative purpose in it. That is the biggest thing why there is a family. And you need to save the creation purpose by all ways and means that is ever possible. And this is not even about forgiving people. I mean, I'm not worried about forgiving. I've forgiven people already a long time ago, before it even happened. I was just trying to fight to keep, to save the family. But the more I tried to save the family, the more they were tearing the family apart. And at the end of the day, I got to a point where I just said, Lord, there's no way I can save this thing any longer. But let me tell you also this, and this is, I'm not sitting here today with any aggression or hate or whatever towards the family, because I realized that this thing could happen because I have built wrongly. I cannot show the finger at them. I have built wrongly. I got this new revelation of things and how to do it, but it was too late to implement it in this situation. And the paperwork was not correctly in place, the packaging was not correctly in place, and I've just trusted people that I must not trust or whatever, because I didn't know how at that stage, before that, how to build a thing where we can work together. And if there's someone that you maybe cannot trust, we can handle it without losing each other. But you can sort of isolate the problem, not losing the family and not losing the money. The money is not the issue for me. The issue is losing the family. It's not losing the money. I can make the money again. The money is not the issue. It's about saving the family. Because if the devil can drown the family, he will drown you. The creative purpose that's in your family is the thing that it's designed to give a death blow to the kingdom of darkness. And the devil fears it, that you will find that creative purpose in the family. Because the manifestation of that creative purpose is an absolute death blow in the kingdom of darkness. And he fears it. He fears it with everything in it. Therefore, he will always try to destroy family. and hinder you from generational momentum, not even generational wealth, generational momentum in relationships, in health and wealth and everything. Because it's all about this. The kingdom of earth is all about this. The money is only a means to an end. It is not the main thing. But I took a knock for 2 years that was really absolutely a nightmare. And I just realized that there's nothing I can do about it. I've done everything I could do. I cannot show a finger to anyone and say, it's you. I could just show a finger to myself and said, listen, you have built wrongly. Unknowingly, but it's still so. Finding out the right stuff too late, but I think not maybe too late. The Lord is still the one that can change everything. But I believe that as I sit here, I believe the Lord gave it so that we can help people like you that is in an early situation to build correctly, to strategize correctly, to package correctly. Because you will get problems in families. People, it's impossible not to get problems because we're working with people. But if we build congregation correctly, and if we build our financial structures correctly, we will be able to handle any problem without losing the business and or the family. There is a way. We just didn't know it. Therefore, we are used to, especially in the Afrikaans society, we said you never work with family. I mean, I don't believe it. It's a biblical principle. Families are supposed to work together. But there's a way how we can do it. Because there will come times where there will be people with less knowledge, we're all in times of developing and progress and maturing. There will be times of misunderstanding. It is inevitable. But if we've built correctly in relationally as well as business-wise, we can eliminate it, and we can deal with it, and we can absorb it, and we don't need to lose any person or any relationship or any money at the end of the day. It is possible to do it, and that is what making me so excited, is that I can see at this stage of my life, from this stage, I can see this kingdom that God purposed for the earth. I can see this original plan. I can suddenly see how things had to come together and what was his design and his strategy and his infrastructure, and it is beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. It is absolutely enough for everything that can happen wrongly and negatively and evil. And we can deal with it, and we are not each other's enemies. We don't need to sit here with prejudice towards each other. We do have forgiveness. We can start all over. We can do the thing correctly. And we can reach heights that you will not reach on your own. Thank you very much.